Bruce Lee said the best way to avoid a punch is to not be there. What's shaking, bacon? My name is Bruno Panucci. I've been doing this carnivore eating on and off for years, but I've been very consistent with it for about a year and a third now. So what's really interesting about this is I've lost about 150 pounds, and I'm continuing with my weight loss journey, but I probably have about another, I would say 70 pounds of just fat to lose. Now, it might be as high as 80 pounds. We'll see when I get there. So this is going to be a work in progress. Right now, I'm at about a 46-inch jean. So if I get down to a 36-inch jeans, I'll be satisfied. And from there, I'll reassess. But this is a journey, and one of the things that got me to this point was self-sabotage. A few of the things that make that easy is having a sweet tooth and a large appetite, and giving into cravings at the drop of a hat. So here's a photo of me at my largest. This was me, right here. Now that's a photo of what self-sabotaging behavior looks like. I want you to avoid all the pitfalls from going into the holiday season and having all the sugary junk food around you. It's not going to be easy. For those of you who are new to this, and those of you who have been doing this for a while and get a little overconfident and think, I can do that. I'll just have a little bite. Yeah, well, that's how I got to be that size. So it may not work that way for you, but it works that way for a lot of people. And next thing you know, they fall off the wagon. And some people, it happens over and over and over again with. Sometimes over a period of weeks or months or years. In my case, it was years. Now, I wasn't aware that I had a sugar addiction up until about 8 years ago. And it took me another 6 years to appreciate how serious my sugar addiction was. I want to try and save you some of the hassle I went through. And we're going to go over some self-sabotaging behaviors. And hopefully it's going to prevent you from making some bad choices in the upcoming weeks during the holiday season. Unfortunately, our holidays are full of junk food. Every holiday, there's a junk food that's related to it. If it's Valentine's Day, it's chocolates. If it's Easter, it's candy and chocolate. If it's Christmas, it's cookies and cakes. So you got to kind of watch yourself around the holiday seasons because you're going to be in situations that you can't always control. It won't only be at home when all the kids have all that food around. It's going to be at work, and it's going to be at social settings, at your family's house, at your friends' houses. You're going to go to little parties and get-togethers. And so we want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for the most success possible. Going on any way of eating can be difficult enough, but trying to cut out sugar and carbohydrates from your diet can be difficult in the first couple weeks. It can be very difficult. And after that, it can be more manageable. And I find usually at about the 3-month mark, you can manage almost any craving. And you really don't even get the cravings to begin with. Because I tell you, it's nice on the other side. So one thing you can do is boost your awareness. Be aware of your triggers. Now, for me, I always had a sweet tooth. So seeing a commercial was one of the things that could trigger me. Being at a friend's house, and I always had to deal with junk food. Now, I had a big appetite, and I love junk food. I did do stress eating. We all have stress in life, and it's how we manage the stress. And I was using food to manage my stress. Now, I was managing stress in other ways, but one of the ways was with food. And we want to try and take that out of the equation. So recognize your triggers. Recognize that when you're at work, this food's going to be around you. And you got to find ways to manage it so you don't give in to temptation, because this isn't one of those things where you just went off your diet for an afternoon and then you get back on it later in the day or the next day. Well, it is for some people if they don't deal with sugar and carbohydrate addiction. But for lots of the people that do, what you're doing is you're resetting that every time you give in. So we want to try and prevent that from happening. So one of the things you can do is keep food at work that you can eat. So maybe keeping some burger patties in a nearby fridge, or keeping some carnivore bars close by, or keeping something in a baggie in your office or at your workstation that you can munch on in case the cravings start to get bad. So that when you go back into the lunchroom, or you're around other people at a house party or a get-together, you're not going to give in to that food. Maybe it means you have to bring your own food. Being aware of your triggers is one thing that's going to prevent you from sliding down that slippery slope. So if you can avoid the problem to begin with, you're not going to have to deal with the problem, right? So avoid that punch. Don't be there when that punch is thrown. So you want to look before you leap. You want to be prepared. If you know you're going into tomorrow and it's going to be a big day, make sure you have your food planned out. If that doesn't work, have a backup plan. Maybe your spouse can help you out. Maybe your spouse can drop off some food for you that you can eat. Maybe you have food already at work so that you won't have to deal with any problems in case you run out of food. Maybe you ended up working late and you're thinking, oh, now I'm going to be really hungry at the end of work. You already have a backup plan. Avoid situations with friends and family and work and social settings where you're going to give in to temptations. So having a backup plan for your backup plan is a good way to go. Because let's face it, you've been in these situations before, and yet here you are watching this video, seeing if you can learn to correct self-sabotaging behavior when trying this carnivore diet. Some people have slept after being a carnivore for a year or 2 years, and next thing you know, they slept and they had a hard time getting back on the wagon, even though they experienced that good life and they knew how good it was for them. Friends and family might mean well when they offer you this food because sometimes they just don't understand. So all you have to do is explain to them that you're on an elimination diet and you're just trying this out for a little while to see how you feel. And most people won't argue with that. And just say, if it becomes a big topic, just say, I don't really want to talk about it right now. And just find a different topic to talk about. So the next thing you can do is set meaningful goals and pair them with an action plan. So you don't have to worry about next year. You don't have to worry about being a carnivore for the whole year. You don't have to worry about being a carnivore for the next month. Just worry about being a carnivore for today. And part of that is making sure that you have all the food you're allowed to eat at your fingertips so that whenever you're in a tempting situation, instead of giving into that tempting situation with that junk food, you can go get satisfied with the food you're allowed to eat. In the beginning, you can't always trust your food cravings and your hunger signals because you're dealing with sugar addiction as well. And you're dealing with sugar cravings. So stay satisfied on the food you can eat and have a go-to food that's always in the fridge or in your purse or in your locker at work or in the fridge at work that you can have. If you go to someone's house, bring food with you. You know what? If they're friends, they won't really care. If they're family, they'll understand. You can always be discreet about it. You can eat before you go to these places. Have a backup plan and be prepared. Try and work with people that you're close with, your close family or friends, so that they can support you through this. Tell them you need their support through this. They won't listen to your words necessarily, but they will listen to the results. And they can't argue with the results, and that's when they're going to be open-minded and want to listen. So don't put yourself in difficult situations where you're going to have to explain yourself with confrontational people, because that just creates stress and anxiety. And what happens with stress and anxiety? You can turn to eating junk food. You want to end each day feeling good about what you've done. And also at the end of each day, think about what's going to happen the next day and be prepared for that next day. If you know you have a long day, eat more food. Have food prepared. Another thing I want you to do is befriend yourself. Be prepared for the fact that you're trying to make positive changes in your lifestyle. You want to kind of draw closer to yourself and understand yourself better. And part of that is just learning to be kind to yourself. You want to set yourself up for success. But if this is a new lifestyle for you, you have to accept that as a new lifestyle. This isn't something you're just doing blindly for the next little while. This is something you're trying to make do with for the near future. And until, for some reason, it might not make you feel good. And at that point, you might want to reassess. But you want to make sure you're helping yourself through this process. So being kind to yourself is rule one. Find ways to help yourself out. Find ways to manage your stress. Find ways to build yourself up and have a network around you. You don't want to treat this like you have with lots of other diets through the years, where you're just holding your breath underwater for a week or a month or 6 months until you've gotten to your goal, and then you turn around and take a big gasp of air and eat a bunch of junk food. So if you're treating it like that and you're trying to starve yourself or watch your calories when you're doing this, it's a good way to give in to temptation. If you find you're doing intermittent fasting, that might not be such a good idea with all this junk food around you in the next few weeks. So you might want to put that on hold while you're doing this right now, because all this junk food is going to be at work, it's going to be at home, it's going to be in the stores even when you go shopping. You're going to be inundated with all this sugar and candy. And when you're going through sugar and carbohydrate withdrawals, you're not going to want to be in those situations. So know and embrace your strengths. If you know eating red meat is something that keeps you satisfied, make sure you're getting more red meat in your diet. If it's wings, and wings can be your treat meal, make wings your treat meal. Don't have them with sauce or any sort of seasoning on it that has sugar in it. Have something that you can have, that you're allowed to have. If it's dairy, have cheese. If it's cream, have heavy cream. Whatever it is that's going to make this easier. If it's making oopsie cake, which is a carnivore cake that people make, you can find the recipe for that so that you can have something to get you by through these difficult times. This is kind of like climbing a mountain. Once you've passed the summit and you're on the other side, it's easier. And once you're over on the other side, you want to help other people get to that other side with you, because once they're there, everything's easier. And now it's just smooth sailing from that point on, a lot smoother than it was the first 2 or 3 months. So just be aware and embrace your strengths. Don't put yourself in weak situations. Situations where you know you'll compromise your diet and the way you've chosen to eat from this point on. This can be difficult in the beginning, and as time goes on, it's going to get much easier. I promise you it will. But for the first couple weeks, it can be difficult. The worse your sugar and carbohydrate addiction, the more the withdrawal you're going to feel. So it's going to be nice after you get past that first 2 weeks. After 2 months, it's going to be even better. And after 3 months, you'll be able to tolerate lots of these situations that you couldn't even think about tolerating before. Recognize the situations that make you strong and recognize the situations that make you weak, and don't put yourself in them. So what that leads us to is practicing mindfulness, being aware of yourself and where you are physically as well as emotionally when you're around different people in different situations. So if you're going to your family's house and sometimes you don't get along with all your family, or you're going out with some friends and you don't really have a good time with some of these people that are in the group, you want to make sure that you're in a situation and you're recognizing your anxieties. You want to get to the point where you're breaking these cycles. Being aware of yourself and the environment you're in is one thing you can do to help break this cycle of going to junk food all the time. And this time of year when it's around you, at your fingertips, everywhere you turn, you want to stop and recognize how far you've come from before when you were addicted to those carbohydrates. Recognize how bad these cravings are at the moment if you're going through it, and think to yourself, wow, I wasn't feeling this for the last 2 weeks, and now I'm feeling this crazy intense sensation for sugar that I haven't felt in a couple weeks, and I want to give into it so bad. Recognize how bad it is and recognize how good you were just an hour before and how maybe 3 hours before you weren't tempted at all. This is you and your determination to break the cycle. Recognize that this is the kind of thing you would normally give into, and now you're not. You may need to reassess your strategies. And you may need to stop and think, I'm not in a good spot here. What led me to this spot? What can I do to not put myself in this situation again? Maybe it's going to be about eating before you go to these places. Maybe it's going to be about bringing your own food. Maybe it's going to be about not putting yourself in these stressful situations where there's a lot of anxiety because of the situation itself or the people you're with. I understand sometimes you can't avoid those situations, but you can hopefully minimize the time frame you are in those situations. No one's going to complain if you have to leave early, and no one's going to hold it against you 10 years from now because you had to make a short visit for the holiday dinner at your family's house because you didn't want to put yourself in a situation where you're going to be tempted with all that food. So you had a little bit while you were there, and you just had a reason to keep it short. You're not going to have to do that every year. You're just going to have to go over this hurdle once during this big transition phase. It's a phase. Don't forget that. The other thing we can do is work with professionals. Work with people. Maybe a psychologist is something you may want to take advantage of. A psychologist is just someone who helps you organize your thoughts. It's someone who can give you the tools to manage these situations you put yourself in, who can help you recognize these situations you're in and how to break these habits and these trends that have led you to this point where you have maybe lots of health problems or just you're not feeling well and you want to break this addiction that you have. So putting yourself in situations where the sugar is always at your fingertips versus putting yourself in a situation with someone who's trying to help you deal with these cravings. Find experienced people who do this. There's lots of seasoned carnivores out there who are willing to offer their help. They're easy to find in social media. Kelly Hogan offers coaching for this. Steak and Butter Gal offers coaching for this. Kelly Hogan is a pretty humble person. She'll turn around and tell you, look, my classes are full, but check out all these other great people you can go and get help from. Those are the type of people who are just giving people. They want to help you. And if they can't help you, they want to make sure you're set up for success. So seek out these people. There's nothing better than when you find your tribe and you can build each other up. You can build them up and they can build you up. It's such a good feeling when you're on the other side of sugar cravings and you don't have to deal with them too intensely anymore. And then when you're there, being able to help other people. There's nothing like it. And it's nice to be able to help someone else go through their difficult time. And it's nice to be able to shorten that window of time. It took me years to try and manage this. If I would have had a tribe years ago, it might have only been months. It might have only been a year or two, not 6 or 8 years. I had had that problem for most of my life, but I didn't recognize it till my early mid-30s. So I want to see you succeed. I want to succeed. I want to see you succeed. We all want to help you succeed. So find your tribe, look out there. There's lots of different ways to do this. And one of the most important ways is understanding what you're doing and why you're doing it. So start learning about your mindset and your way of thinking so that you can avoid these problems with sugar addiction and carb cravings. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give a thumbs up and subscribe. Talk to you later.